we go. All right, so today I gathered a bit of reference for Fantastic Tanks. It's a series I'm working on, but I don't know that we'll be doing tanks today. Actually, a lot of my reference is from aircraft, and the reason that I'm using aircraft as a reference is that they tend to have much more decorative paint jobs. So rather than functional camo, well, they do have some functional camo, but many of them, feature nose art and bright, highlights around the engines, on the tail fins, stripes and insignias and all kinds of interesting things to kind of spice it up. So that is what I want to incorporate into Fantastic Tanks. So I'm using that reference, and so you'll see this often enough when you're looking at concept art. You want to mash up some different ideas so that it's not a one-to-one exact representation of what you see in the real world. You want to add in some interesting elements, incorporate elements from maybe other parts of maybe recognizable motifs. So in this case, adding some aircraft kind of paint jobs to a tank gives it kind of this familiar theme. Like we can understand what we're seeing, and we might not always pick up exactly where it's from. You might not know, like, oh, okay, that looks like an aircraft, and you don't want to be too obvious about it if you're if you're at all intending to kind of stay on theme. But it's always good to pick up those kind of outside influences and add them in. Adds more life and interest to the work. Okay, let's see. Feeling out these brushes for the aircraft here. And so what I'm going to be doing tonight is just painting some of these references. I think you internalize more that way than simply looking at the references and trying to identify what it is that you want to incorporate. If you paint it, then you have to absorb that information in a different way. So I've got pretty simple brush here. It's kind of a square brush, and the pen pressure on the tablet is set to opacity. So the harder I press, the more kind of pigment goes down, if you want to conceptualize it as pigment. And the lighter you press, the less of an effect you'll get with it. And then I've just got a light and a dark color that I'm switching between, and that's to kind of jump back and forth on these forms, light and shadow, right, with a neutral background. And if I kind of take a moment and squint as I'm looking at my reference, start to see things as these unified shapes rather than these individual parts that you're piecing together. So this could be, I know it's not quite coming together yet to, see what exactly what we're looking at, but this could be simplified to, let me see. Basically, I'm seeing only 3 major shapes there. So there's a shape here. And if I do a new layer, fill that in. There's your light there. In the dark, I've already laid out. And then here, there's a kind of a middle gray. And that would be bounced light coming up. And that communicates the form pretty simply. So I might just kind of keep that there a little bit. All right, and then from there you can start detailing out some little bits. Let's see. Got some interesting forms on it. It's got like these little bubbles on the side of the canopy. And this is actually the reflection of the wings. Kind of picked a somewhat of a complicated image because it's so reflective. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We're going to block it out and then use some of that nose art that I'm seeing in there and move on to the next one. Let's see, I have an orange, yellow orange in here. There's kind of this scripty looking nose art there, and then it says Audrey on the front. I might make this a little cleaner. In fact, I think I can block it in first. So I know where I'm going to start and where I'm going to end so that I don't have too much of a sloppy transition there. And actually, I might move that just a little bit. Give myself a little more space. Okay. Put some bounce light in here. So we're picking up color elsewhere in the environment and adding it in so that it's reflecting this color from somewhere else. And here, and mainly we're going to focus it on this left side because we've got sunlight coming in from the other side, and that's kind of the dominant color there. And then you've got a I could soften this transition out, actually. It's probably what I should do. But. And like with most things, we'll want to kind of complete this as much of it as in one motion, right? So as I'm looking at this reference here, the this canopy does have a couple shapes going on. So it kind of has this bubble in the middle here. However, if we simplify this and we have this arc all kind of connect as one arc, then it's going to read much better for us. We're going to be able to kind of see that as form rather than a jumble. Let's see. Little doodads inside that window there. We'll soften that up and then put a rim light on it. Like that. And see, this other window kind of needs the same kind of treatment. They're actually, I know they're not totally reading as windows quite yet, but these little bits here all kind of follow the same logic. And that is, you've got this dark framing, which catches light on the rim, and then you just follow that circle and complete it, and then you go a little bit gray, like a little gray in the middle of this bubble shape here, and then finish it off with a highlight there on the edge, like this. Okay, and then we can bring these in the frame. Actually, this is a little more. I should zoom out for this, make sure that we get the relationships right. That's kind of flat there. And like that. There's these interesting, lots of bubble canopies on this aircraft. Really interesting. Not that it is at all really relevant to the Fantastic Tank stuff, but it is interesting to paint this reference. Okay. See how to get these relationships correct here, so that we're not drifting too much. This is a pretty strong brush for what I'm doing. I do tend to work with hard brushes pretty often. And sometimes you need to blend things together, and a hard brush is not as preferable. System is chugging a little bit here. Let's see, I got a little bit of a shadow there. Okay, and then we should just work on the silhouette. So I'm going to merge these all together so we've just got one layer. Grab my lasso tool here, go down, that, trim that off. And then the same thing on the other side. And I think we can get a little bit more of this, these implications of form here by doing these kind of vertical vertical cuts there. And actually, I think that text is too low. All right, so I'm just going to fill that in. And then this has got to move up and get cleaned up. Yeah. So I've separated that. That was Control-Shift-C and Control-V. Control-Shift-C will copy everything. It'll like condense all the layers down into your selection and copy that. It'll be copying exactly what you're seeing and not just that individual layer. And it looks like there's actually another glass port here. Whole front of this aircraft is glass, it seems. Okay, and then we'll take this, and it needs to be like up here, looks like over. And then I think our colors could be adjusted. This bit here is, quite loose, and that's fine. Actually, I like it to be loose, but when you're dealing with machinery, then there's only so much grace you can be given for things not being symmetrical. Back to all of this. Kind of shift over. Now I do have the chat pulled up. If anyone has questions, I can jump in on that. Apply some little rivets here and there. You want to have some overlapping forms as well. If you're trying to show depth, I mean, this is a pretty kind of a narrow view, right? We're looking straight on the front of this aircraft. And so we want to be able to show that there's dimensionality to it. So we kind of need, like, this vertical here is going to cut through this round form here, and that's going to give us these depth cues, as they overlap each other. And then as far as texture and stuff, you can do something simple like that, where you just kind of take these little hashes, and it's going to imply the kind of the paneling on the aircraft. Same here, we could imply that text on the side. And anywhere that you've got light like this, this is really light catching the side of this, and then this is a reflected area here. We're going to take this yellow and really intensify it. Rather than, laying everything down and then darkening the shadows with black, you want to, well, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but if I were to advise you, I would not darken it with black. You get kind of its base color, and then where it mixes with light, you mix that kind of the intensity of those base colors with the light value. So we do need a little bit of warmth, just judging by my reference here. And I might do this with overlay. Whoops. Do new layer and set this to overlay. And we'll start getting this warmth in here from our sunlight. And some of these areas are just a little bit too intense, so I have to knock those back. You can do that on the layer below it. A little bit here. I'm not really sure why it's my reference, why it's catching on that side. Maybe there's clouds over there that are catching the sunlight, and then it's reflecting off of that surface. Okay. All right, so now underneath that, I'm going to darken some of this up a little bit, like a cool gray. And this all is certainly not that bright in my reference. And I don't see any real compelling reason to and make it the focal point, you know, to draw that attention to that part right there. So we're going to knock all that back. And then up here on top, we'll cut into that a little bit. So this is something, I may do this a little more with some of the other aircraft. But if you're looking at a really complicated shape, sometimes what you can do is take that simplification method that we started with and then subtract from it or add color to it. And I'll give an example of it right here. So what we did here, we could real simply, we could approach this like a lot more quickly by just taking this form. So let's say we just started with like black here. This is all dark, right? As a base. And then we grab our light color and we get a smooth transition, right? So that's like your starting point. We might do another, like a reflection here. So you get some light over here, get a little reflection coming up, and then like maybe something more intense, maybe coming in like this. Okay, so now like that form by itself, really simple, right? And then if we start cutting away from that by either erasing or painting on top of it, so I'll just do a mask and get my eraser, and you know, we'll follow these forms, and we've got, you know, all that kind of texture underneath it that we were playing with. You can see how quickly we're implying that there's a lot more going on up there. And then if we go on, well, let me just erase this here to get the shape right. And then if we go on top of that and we paint in, you know, something, let's say this blue, because it's not really present in that shape that we have there, and we paint that in, what this is going to imply is a form change, right? Because the blue is implying that light is bouncing from a different direction, whereas, you know, our warm grays that we put in there are having light come in from this direction and bounce off. And in fact, it's, you know, bouncing off towards you, towards your eye, right? And so that's why you would vary your colors like that. So partly it's because it's interesting. They're on the opposite end of the color spectrum, you know. But if you think about it just in terms of reflections, then it's giving you visual information about what light is present behind you or to the left of us. If that light is coming in and bouncing off of this and coming back, or bouncing off of this edge here, so we can see that's a blue. There's some kind of a blue cast from behind us, and then there's a warm light from the right. So it's form information at the end of the day. It gives the eye something to grab onto to see, okay, I see how light is, you know, affecting this this object, and where those casts are coming from. And so something to play with if you don't already consider that in your painting. Let me grab some of this color, put it in this window here. And then this window needs some, a little bit of love up here. Really, I think we just need to erase a lot of that. Probably be the best thing for it. I'm not totally sure what aircraft this is. I believe this is a Liberator. But I just grabbed a whole bunch of reference today, so I, was a little indiscriminate about it. I was more interested in, the nose art and that kind of stuff. All right. I'll follow some of these forms. Whoops. I see. So I'll follow some of these forms around. So I've got, I put in these little hash marks here. Doot, doot, doot. And then so if there's a form change, this is a little higher up, but it's still going to follow that same logic of light bouncing off from that direction. I'm going to make it a little bit cleaner, I think, here. That. And you'll see me zoom in and out a lot. You're looking to see if things read on a large, on the macro level, rather than getting in too close and trying to make it, getting too fussy with it. If it works, like this, you can tell that that's form. There's light information and all that good stuff. Then, then you're working. Then you've got it working. And if it's not working at that level, then all the detailing in the world isn't going to do anything for you. You've got to get that sorted out. And these, I think, will intensify a little bit here. Clean them up. And would make sense also to, let's make that one a little more crisp. It would make sense to have the color shift on these as well, since this is a rounded form on the nose. The color is going to be affected by the light around it. All right, so clean this up just a little bit here. Clean, 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 clean. And then we'll come in with something a little bit brighter. The tops. Top of that. Have that kind of shift. I'm debating if I want to clean up some of these areas, but yeah, why not? Let's do it. Do a couple. Just a little bit here, just the same concept as I was talking about before on top here. I'm going to do it with these windows, just to clean this up. Of course, I'm just going with a a dark color here, so almost line work, but with these kind of technical mechanical forms, you're going to have a bit of that. Which is kind of a challenge for me. It's not an area that I like to work in too often. It's I try to keep things pretty fluid, and so the rigidity of mechanical work is it's never very exciting to me. I'll put it that way. I like the result when it's done, but the actual just kind of getting in there and doing meticulous line drawings, not really my jam. Maybe we'll do a little pilot in there or something. Oops. Don't want to do that. And keep that reflection there. Okay, that's probably good enough. I'm gonna take this whole bit, move it away from the edge a little bit there, and we'll just merge that together. We'll apply the layer mask, do a little smudge. Let's see, this edge here gets a little cleaned up. And that is a little excessive there. All right, on to the next one. I'll get some reference pulled up on the other screen for. Okay, this is the one. Okay, so I got a little helicopter here. Let's go with gray, greenish gray even. Interesting. Okay. All right, we're just gonna block in this form. And I'm just kind of adjusting my my brush size as I go here. Getting these major points in. It's got these kind of engines on top there. Rotor head, of course. I'm not going to get, I don't want to get fussy with the rotor head. I can't say that I'm not going to get fussy with it, because if I say that, then what happens is I have to. This weird thing, just can't stick to it. See, here we go. Said I wouldn't do it. Okay, so this has got like canopies right here. I'm gonna switch some colors here. Get these things blocked in. Canopy there. Comes down. Across. This needs to be a little rounder. Whoops. A little rounder here. And then it's got this interesting antenna, and this, I believe, is just a little radar dome underneath there. Just lighten some areas up here. And just judging by the markings on this aircraft, I believe this is a Russian naval helicopter. But we haven't gotten to the markings yet. Just figured I would foreshadow a little bit. Could be wrong. Happy to entertain other thoughts on that. Alright, so that's going to be down there. Another bubble canopy. Very popular with the bubble canopies these days. Very, very hip in the aviation world. That may or may not be true. I'm just words coming out of my mouth right now. Right. So now we're differentiating between these kind of graphic zones on the aircraft. So most of this is this kind of gray metal, but a portion of it has these, black areas, and then there's some white on there as well. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull out my smudge brush here, which I wouldn't typically do too much with on a mechanical surface like this, but I want to just get this whole front area softened up. And actually, a decent portion of that is glass, so some of it's going to be, some of it's going to get kind of knocked out, metaphorically speaking. Okay. It's an interesting looking aircraft. All right, and then a portion of it is painted white. And we want to make sure that, at least at this stage, we're not quite getting to losing our form, because we're trying to differentiate these bits. Now you could approach this a couple different ways. You could approach it with your local value first, and what I mean by that is or rather the local color. So if it's red, make it red. If it's gray, make it gray. If it's white, etc., etc. And then do your shading on top of that. A more common approach is to do your black and white or your grayscale. Get it to the form read that you want, and then apply your colors kind of as a wash over top of that. And that would be a more common approach. I find that actually, painting the color transitions is not a bad exercise. It's not bad for, building your understanding of what it is that you're looking at, and how light changes and color shift with different lights applied to it, right? All right. Let me clean some of this up. There. That's not quite like that. So I can't tell if this is a perspective issue or if it's that window actually kind of opens up. That kind of bubble there. All right. And then the white areas here. So okay, I'm gonna block out these forms here. Hatch there. Let's get these connected here. Go. Okay. I'm gonna go over top of this with some color. Whoops. Here we go. Okay. actually almost all the way up to that window. There we go. And then here. Let's see. Let's see, there's a, I think we might get to this later, but there's like a little rod that comes off the front of it that might have to deal with. We might just omit it. The thing with making those kind of decisions, you know, whether to keep or omit certain details in order to make the painting work, is that on some subjects you can get away with it more than others. You know, I would say that's kind of the job of the artist, is to decide what goes in, what gets left out. You know, in order to make a successful image. But when it's a certain subject, you know, a topic, like you know, aviation or whatever, it's like the thing that people are interested in generally when they're looking at that image is not how well you composed it. You know, they're not conscious of that. They're conscious of what they love about that subject, what they love about that aircraft. And so if you fudge a lot of those details in order to make it work, then you lose people. Whereas, you know, generally speaking, I would make a lot of creative interpretations on most subjects, because you want it to be interesting. And maybe that's just an indictment on some subjects just aren't that interesting. You got to really work at it to make them work. Okay, I'll stop trolling. Let's see here. Let's move that over. Now I'm doing the not so bright thing of combining local value or local color and shadow layer. But whatever, we'll deal with it. I think that's what I say every time. There's a right way to do it, and then there's the we'll deal with it Eric Elwell way of doing it. We will pay the price when we get there. Yeah, that should be the saying, right? Instead of instead of crossing the bridge when we get there, should just be paying the toll when we get there, because that's probably a little more accurate. Pay the toll and hope we still get across. All right, so there's a couple things that need to happen here. I'm gonna merge these down. Gotta throw some light on this over here because I left this detail kind of undealt with. Okay, now I'm gonna start cutting some things away from this. So let's grab my lasso tool. Delete that. There's a form on the inside here. That's probably the pilot or co-pilot. And there's a little form here. So now we can do a some reflections. Maybe, well, I think I would grab that color from the other one, but actually a little greener in this image, so I'm gonna move that way. And we'll throw some of those reflections on here. Here. And a little bit on that window there. And this guy. And then brighter colors. We need to connect. So this should just be one arc here. Like that, right? Only much thinner. And generally my arcs are smoother if I use my whole arm, but we shall see. Today might not be the day. All right. Okay, and we'll bring in some light here. Some reflections here. And here. And here. Don't want to get too crazy with it, but every time I say that, that's exactly what I do. That's got to get adjusted a little bit there. This kind of, in that little bubble canopy there. Okay, we got some light coming up here. And this is actually got to be adjusted. This is an interesting feature on the reference. There's a window that comes down here just on this side. Looks like some kind of an observation window or something. And it omits that paint job there, which we'll come back to. All right, so now we'll paint in this. mouth thing, which is the whole reason I chose this reference. It took me this long to get to it. Yeah. Just. Okay. And then below that layer, there's a white, quite an off-white. Like this helicopter's been drinking a lot of coffee. Brush those helicopter teeth. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and just do, I'm just going to do the lasso tool for this one, because it's much quicker, much cleaner. This thing has got this interesting detail on it. It's interesting to think how you'd have to approach. Actually, I'm just going to do this. How you'd have to approach the paint job on this, because this little turret here is going to rotate. It's kind of an interesting problem to solve. You know, like, so this is always teeth down there. It doesn't have to be at a certain. Actually, you know what? This might not rotate. If that were a FLIR, that would. It's not. I think that's just a dome. So the radar would be inside of this, and this is a just a kind of a protective covering. So scratch that. Never mind. I was wrong. Not an interesting problem to solve at all. Seemed cooler when I thought of it that way. Alas. Let's see. Cut that one out and cut this one out. We'll go more of a curve there to follow this form. And then this one will come down like that. There's this interesting little detail here, like another antenna or something. We don't actually get teeth there. Okay. We'll call this teeth. And what I'll do with this is I'm just going to lock this layer and then switch to a darker color and paint in the shadows. And just make it a little less than that. So we're just going to try to get this to match the curvature of the paint around it. Now, you could do this by doing a separate layer that's just the shadow layer. We could have done that early on, but I don't really feel like it. Could save some time that way. I think it gets much more analytical when you do it that way, which is fine, I guess. I'm kind of interested in some happy accidents in there, you know, that kind of liven it up a little bit. going to do some little shifts in hue here so it's not all the same. And we do want this to maintain a brightness. You know, your whites are going to reflect more light from the scene, and so they kind of hold up a little better. In terms of how bright they are in the shadows. As long as they're receiving light from somewhere, they're you know, gonna have a kind of softer transition. Okay, I've been fussing around that too much. See, that's the outline. And this could probably use a little bit of light too. Not too much. Keep it a little subtle. And I'm actually gonna put a little more red in there because I'm looking at my reference, and it's whoops, it is a richer red than I'm playing with here. Okay. Let's see, what do we have? That's the glass. That's the outline. And so now we're going to start painting just some other details. I'm just going to go straight to the color. Too technical with it. Yeah. Kind of see the pilot inside of there. Here. Let's see. A little off on that one. I'll just do a black line on that one. That's got a almost gross looking yellow up here. These numbers. There. Get some darks here. Clean up those edges a little bit. Now we could actually, just write these letters out, or the numbers out, and then warp them over it, but not too worried about it. We'll pay that toll when we get there. So now that we've done all that legwork, to block all these things in, it's no problem to start adding in these little details, because you can follow the forms that we laid out before. With relative comfort and ease. Well, anyway, the main thing that I was interested in with this particular one was these teeth. Clean those up a little bit. This form there. Just getting rounded. And see. Shadow. Lots of shadow shapes on the other side, underside, which, is obvious. But you can get a lot out of these by, cutting the right angles. And I don't mean right angles, I mean cutting the correct angles to show these forms, receding in space. And I should put these landing gear on, huh? Talk about making people happy on the subject matter, right? But actually make sure that it can functionally land, all that good stuff. Or someone's gonna point it out. I wouldn't land that thing. I wouldn't fly with that. How am I ever gonna land that thing? It doesn't have any landing gear. Okay. I think we'll get some value up here. Clean this up a little bit. There. Make a little bit of sense of this. Concentrating. Going quiet. Okay. I think we can call this good. Didn't really explain this form over here too well, but basically this is a stabilizer back there. Oh, that's actually kind of cool. It's got these little like wires and stuff. Let's see. Is anything blatant that I'm missing on this thing? Um, there. Grab this guy, that color there. Give this a little more form. There we go, something like that. And I might go ahead and soften that up a little bit there. As in, bring the light down a little bit so it's not so harsh. And oops. I suppose do a little bit of light on these. Just a little bit. All right, let's see. Got everything pretty much. Merge layers. And we want to add, oops, a little bit of overlay. I'm just gonna go with a soft brush, I think. So many brushes. Let's see, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Darker. And unfortunately, I'm not getting very quick feedback on it. My machine is old and in need of replacement. So it hangs up a little bit here. But I cannot complain. This machine has been good to me for a long time. Here. Okay, this might be a bit much what I'm doing here, but We'll see how it goes. It's like getting a little too smooth in there. Don't like it. Too smooth. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're using an overlay, kind of push and pull portions of the painting. And any color above middle gray is going to increase the brightness of anything below it. Anything below it in the layer stack. And then anything below middle gray will decrease. So the amount of the effect that you want is, the farther away you get from the middle, the more powerful the effect will be. All right, so if we turn that off, you can see how it adjusts the light a little bit and the color. I would probably, I like the original that we had. I think this gives it a little bit of a bump, so I might bring it back just a little. Something like that. And then let's play with some adjustment layers here. Guess we'll go with that blue. So we're deviating a bit from the reference, but it looks better, I think. More a little more pop to it. There's something about those greens that sends off red flags, like something's not right with that, you know, almost like, mold, or it's unhealthy or something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure what the response is, but those greens don't come off as attractive that often. It might just be like an unnatural light, like most light either going to be cool or warm, as in like bluish or orange, red, yellow, and I don't think you get a lot of direct light, unless you're like in nature. It could happen if you're underneath a tree canopy and the light is passing through, and if you're near to those trees, you can get kind of that greenish hue. But generally speaking, we don't see light that way. That is in that green spectrum. Let's try that. Maybe put a shadow under it. And of course, harder shadows near the contact points. And you soften it as you move away from those. I'm assuming there's another wheel back there, like back here somewhere. But I don't see it in my reference. And then of course we can mask it a little bit. Oops. Clean up this edge a little bit there. And then this kind of curves around at that point. Oops. Wrong layer. There we go. Okay. I think we're kind of drawing to a close here. I was thinking I would do it's almost 11 o'clock. So I think this is probably a good place to stop. Let's see. Adjust this just a little bit more. Some of that green out of there. The shadows. Oh. Okay. I suppose this could use some clarification. You know, just in terms of form. It's too ambiguous, I think. Some of these things are getting lumped together, you know, as a similar shape, or just too confusing. So I'm going to try to knock this back a little bit. And see if we can get a better read on it. So at this stage, I'm just doing, I'm just kind of brushing in some custom color and so forth to see if I can, make these forms read, you know, pop out a little more. And so what I'm doing here, you can see I changed some colors in the background there to be, you know, more muddy. And partly I'm going to push those back, you know, less contrast in that area, so they're not, you know, pulling for attention as much. And then what I'm trying to do here is get this kind of staged so that I can add some contrast into this window. That's too aggressive, so I need to drop that back. And I think we'll marry those, see what that looks like. Nope. Take a few steps back. Yeah, somewhere in there. Just getting that line cleaned up, I think, is the issue. In my tired mode, I think it's kind of getting obvious. When I get quiet, and then whenever I talk, I'm just like, yeah, I think I want to finish this. Not sure. That's usually a sign. Okay. Deal with some of these areas here a little more softly. something like that. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good place to stop on this one. So we got the front of this Liberator, and then I believe that's Liberator, and then this one, I don't know what class this is. Looks like some kind of a reconnaissance naval helicopter. All right, I think that'll do it for tonight. Let me go full screen and you can see. There we go. You can see them both simultaneously. And yeah, I think that'll do it. All right, thank you for coming along to watch the painting for these two, and you can join next week, Wednesday night, 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And usually the streams go for 2.5 hours. That's pretty typical. And I'll get 1 or 2 paintings in. I wouldn't mind going a little faster than that. Wouldn't mind doing more thumbnailing, that sort of thing. But the purpose of this night for me is to just kind of play with ideas that are interesting to me, and not necessarily get too bogged down on training or topical stuff that I feel like I need to areas of growth. I think that's definitely important, and I need to and I would recommend anybody to do something hard. Pick some area that does not come easy to you, and approach that. But I would also encourage the practice of what I'm doing here tonight, and that is just do what interests you as well. If that's the whole reason I think that we get into this field to begin with, is that there are topics that interest us. The medium of painting is a fun way to engage with things, and so the two just kind of work together, right? Once you start, it's kind of like, I use the language analogy, but once you speak the language, then you talk about the things that interest you. And so that's kind of the point of this Wednesday night live stream for me, is to just kind of play with ideas that are as they come. And I really don't plan for it. I don't really pull up reference and sit down and think, okay, what would be a cool thing that people would be interested in. And I do appreciate everyone coming along and watching. I don't ignore that. But at the end of the day, this is time that's carved out for me to explore things that that I just don't make time for otherwise. Right, so. And I would encourage each of you, if you're painting, to paint along. Like, come up, what interests you in that moment, and pull up reference for that, and learn through that kind of kinesthetic action of actually doing it, and not just hanging along for little kernels or gems, right? And that's the thing that I'll just say this quickly as I'm wrapping up. I'll find myself watching YouTube videos and looking for some kind of insight, some little gem or something, and I don't want to be so brazen as to say that they never come. There are little gems here and there, but I think it pales in comparison to actually spending the time to just kind of develop your own approach to things and your own understanding of what you're seeing, and how to capture that in this medium, right? So think that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you for joining along, and I'll see you next week. All right, have a good night.